Welcome back to DartBrain, the podcast where your dartboard stays silent, but your body language is spilling all your secrets. Hey there, dart nerds, pub league philosophers, tungsten tacticians. This one's for you, the players who've analyzed every release angle and counted every bounce out, but still hunch over like they're bracing for a bar fight with gravity and losing. The ones who've let one bad round hijack their whole match because their body threw the chimp a panic party. If bad posture were a crime, you'd be on a first-name basis with the warden and hosting posture rehab meetings in cell block D. So let's talk about why your body language might be your loudest opponent, and how to stop earning frequent flyer miles at Meltdown Motel. I'm your host, Clint Clarkson, part-time darts philosopher, full-time overthinker, and today we're starting from the ground up. We're not diving straight into the brain, at least not at first. Instead, we're taking a look at something that's often overlooked in sports psychology, the role of the body. How the way you hold yourself in the moments before the throw, between turns, and when you collect your darts shapes the way your mind performs. This episode wasn't a part of my original plan. It was born out of a storage locker filled with several years of questionable life decisions. While cleaning out my locker, which is a mental health exercise in its own right, I came across a book I hadn't touched in years, Presence by Amy Cuddy. I read it years ago, back when I was more focused on presentations and performance in boardrooms than at the hockey. But flipping through it again, I realized something. I'm still using the ideas from that book, and I'm using them most often when I play darts. Because what Cuddy talks about in that book, posture, presence, confidence, and how the body sends messages to the brain, it's all deeply relevant to what happens when we step up to compete. Flipping through that book again reminded me how much of our performance, especially in darts, is tied to what we do before we throw. I'm not talking about warming up your arm or practicing your setup shots. I mean what your body is saying before your brain even catches up. You know what I mean? You're on the board next, you've got 2 minutes to prepare, you've just watched your buddy lose a tight match and now your heart's racing. You walk up, grab your darts and start pacing like you're being interrogated. Your shoulders are hunched, your eyes are down, your breath is short. Your chimp, that emotional primal part of your brain, sees all this and goes, well, I guess we're panicking now. Then it flips on a bathrobe, flips the panic switch, and starts yelling about saber-toothed tigers. And boom, your rhythm's gone. You throw too fast, you grip too tight, you bounce the first dart, you barely survive the leg. And all of this, it was determined before you threw your first dart. But what if there was a better way? What if your practice, your pace, your breathing, and what you did while you were waiting for your next shot was designed to keep you in the right mental state? I'll admit, I had a really bad physical habit that I knew I had. In fact, I was doing it on purpose, at least until a friend called me out on it. Matthew Howell, a fellow darter, once asked me why I stared at the ground between shots. We had talked several times about how the body informs the mind as much as the other way around, and he didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. He wasn't criticizing, just observing. I'd never thought about it that way. I'd been doing it forever. Head down, shoulders slightly rounded, gaze on the floor. I told myself it was a focus thing, a way to stay locked in, avoid distraction. But after that conversation, I started asking a new question. What message is that posture sending to my brain? Is it saying I'm focused and I'm ready? Or is it saying I'm under threat and protect yourself? It's an incredibly important lesson. You're not just preparing your body for the throw. You're priming your brain for how to feel. And the brain, especially the emotional reactive part we call the chimp, doesn't care about logic. It cares about signals. If the body looks defeated, the brain assumes it is. If the body looks ready, the brain falls in line. This is why posture matters. It's not about faking confidence. It's about creating conditions for confidence. It's about sending a message to your chimp, I'm in control and I've got this. Because the chimp doesn't listen to pep talks. It listens to tone. It watches for cues. It responds to what it feels, not what it's told. Basically, it's the drama queen of your dart brain. And your posture, your breath, your stance, they're all part of the script your body is reading to your brain. That's what we're diving into today. We're going to look at the research behind all of this, from Amy Cuddy's work to sports psychology principles. We'll talk about how your body influences your brain's emotional responses, your confidence, and your ability to focus. And we're going to connect it to darts, how you can use these insights to walk with more confidence, reset after a bad round, and show up with the physical energy that cues the mental state you need to perform. We'll talk about real techniques, power poses, neutral gazes, posture checks, breathing cues, and why they're more than just warm-up fluff. They're tools, and they work. And we're going to give you practical, actionable tools to put it all together. So the next time you walk to the Aki, you're not just physically ready, you're mentally built for the moment. Because your focus doesn't just live in your eyes, it starts in your spine. Your confidence doesn't just come from your thoughts, it comes from your breath. And your performance doesn't begin with a throw, it begins with how you walk to the Aki. It's about body-first psychology. It's about performance from the neck down. And it's about how to use posture, breath, and physical intention to keep your chimp in check and give your professor, your calm, logical self, a chance to lead. Let's do this. We all know that body language matters, but we tend to think of it as a social thing. Eye contact, handshakes, arms crossed, all those dating tip YouTube videos Shane keeps sharing. But here's the kicker. Your body language doesn't just talk to other people. It talks to you. You slouch in your chair. Your brain thinks low energy. You raise your eyebrows and smile. Your brain thinks engaged. You breathe like a wounded pug. Your brain thinks panic. And when you're playing darts, the messages you send to yourself with your body can override all the mental work that you've been doing. Let's break it down. There's a theory called the facial feedback hypothesis. It suggests that your facial expressions don't just reflect your emotions, they help create them. Smile, and you actually feel a little happier. Scowl, and your brain leads towards frustration. Same with posture. When you take up space, stand tall, and breathe with control, your body sends signals that you're confident, prepared, and safe. And here's where things get especially interesting and practical. A classic study tested this theory by asking participants to hold a pencil in their mouths in one of two ways: between their teeth, which activates the muscles used to smile, or between their lips, which activates a frown. The participants didn't know this was a test about emotion. They thought they were just helping with a handwriting study. But the results were clear. Those who activated the smile muscles rated cartoons as funnier and reported being in a better mood than those mimicking a frown. Now think about this in the context of darts. If you walk back from a rough visit with your eyebrows furrowed and your jaw tight, your brain's going to follow your face right into a funk. But if you give a quick smirk, even sarcastically, you might just trick your brain into bouncing back faster. Your chimp doesn't know the difference between a genuine smile and a fake one. It just knows, hey, we're smiling. Maybe things aren't that bad. Amy Cuddy's work expands on this. She found that holding power poses, expansive open postures like standing with your hands on your hips, chest out and feet wide like Wonder Woman, or standing tall with your arms in a V overhead like you just nailed a 170 checkout, for just 2 minutes can lower cortisol, the stress hormone, and raise testosterone, the dominance confidence hormone. An interesting note about the V for victory pose, where a triumphant athlete holds their arms above their heads. This isn't a learned reaction, it's something innate. Even blind athletes who have been blind their whole lives throw their arms above their heads in victory. It's probably because this is the most expansive pose possible. Arms up, chin up, chest out. But the question is, why does this matter to darts? Clint, you're not suggesting we should all start screaming like Gerwyn Price and throwing our arms in the air at the Royal Canadian Legion, are you? No. Definitely not that, unless your goal is to get banned from the Legion and start a turf war with the Cribbage Club. Let's get back to the part about the effect power poses have on hormones. Lowering cortisol helps reduce stress and anxiety, which are two of the biggest saboteurs of focus and fine motor control, which is vital for darts. When your cortisol levels spike, your hand gets shaky, your breath gets shallow, and your chimp takes the wheel. But when cortisol is managed, you stay cool, steady, and sharp. Meanwhile, increasing testosterone gives you a boost in assertiveness and confidence. Not the chest-thumping aggressive kind. You're not auditioning for a testosterone-charged cologne ad, but the inner calm that says, I got this. That's exactly the kind of mindset you need to commit to your throw and block out distractions. And yes, increases in testosterone from things like power poses can affect both men and women. So decreases in cortisol and increases in testosterone are good for your competitive mental state. Now, Cuddy's original studies were based on 2-minute power poses, but darts isn't made up of 2-minute windows. It's made up of micro moments: walking to the board, waiting to throw, watching your opponent. And in those moments, your body is constantly whispering messages to your mind. That's why even subtle shifts, uncrossing your arms, standing tall between turns, keeping your gaze level, can have a cumulative effect. You don't need to hit a yoga pose mid-match, but you do need to be aware that how you carry yourself, even for a few seconds, sends signals to your brain, and those signals shape your state. The goal isn't to posture your way through a match like you're a model walking down the runway. The goal is to create a consistent physical language of readiness, a language your chimp can read and say, okay, we're good, I remember this, I know this. And that's not just helpful, that's strategic. And as if that weren't enough, there were other benefits to power poses that may have a positive impact on your darting performance. In her research, Amy Cuddy also found that adopting high power poses increased risk tolerance and the feeling of personal power. Why does this matter in darts? Because confidence isn't just about how you feel, it's about what you're willing to do and the risks you're willing to take. Players who feel powerful are more likely to commit fully to their throw, take the right tactical risk when it matters, and recover more quickly from errors. You might decide to confidently lay up rather than going for that big out. You might push back that voice of doubt and trust your preparation. That willingness to act boldly, to play with authority, is often the edge that separates winners from losers. Even subtle feelings of empowerment can shift the way you stand, the way you breathe, and the energy you project at the hockey. And it's not just about looking confident to others, it's about reminding your own brain that you belong here, that you're capable, and that you're not afraid to step into the moment. The more often your body broadcasts that message, the more easily your mind will believe it. So when you stand like a player who's in control, even if you don't feel like one yet, you begin to play like one. That's the real power behind posture. Now let's get weirdly specific. Let's talk about the Soviets. Yes, those Soviets. The ones often associated with doping and rigid national training programs. But behind the Iron Curtain was some of the most detailed, innovative, and forward-thinking sports psychology work the world had ever seen. And while a lot of it flew under the radar for years, the legacy of their research still echoes in modern training theory. One of their key discoveries was the principle that the body doesn't just respond to mental states, it can induce them. I want to say that again and make sure that it lands. The body doesn't just respond to mental states, like slouching and softening your face when you're sad. It can actually induce mental states, like how laughing can be contagious. Soviet psychologists and coaches began studying the use of posture and positioning in the 1960s and 70s, especially among sports that required calm under pressure: archery, pistol shooting, biathlon, gymnastics. These athletes weren't just taught how to perform the motion, they were trained in ready states, specific, repeatable postures that triggered a cascade of neural and physiological responses. The Soviets believed in this so much that some athletes were required to practice their ready states as much as they practiced their actual performance. They found that these ready positions, often simple, grounded, balanced stances with a specific eye focus and relaxed breath, could be practiced over and over until they automatically triggered the desired mental state: alertness, calm, precision. The posture became the switch. In dart terms, it would be like stepping to the hockey and instantly flipping your brain into competition mode just because you've trained your stance, your grip, and your breath to cue that state. The Soviets took it even further. Through extensive experimentation, they found that just imagining these actions, visualizing a shot, mimicking a stance, walking through a movement mentally, would activate the same muscle groups and neural patterns as doing the activity for real. This became the foundation of what we now call motor imagery. In training Olympic athletes and even cosmonauts, Soviet scientists would have performers rehearse mentally in full posture, feet set, jaw relaxed, eyes focused. Not because it felt real, but because the body itself was sending signals to the nervous system. They weren't faking readiness, they were inducing it. So what does this mean for you, standing in a bar with Shane behind you, rattling a pint glass? It means your body is more than just a delivery system for the dart. It's a trigger, a reset button, a programmable cue. And by practicing physical stillness, balance, and focused breath in the same posture over and over, you can teach your dart brain to shift gears on command. You don't need Soviet funding or a team of sports scientists. You just need consistency, a stance, a breath, a cue. Something your chimp and professor can agree on. Something that says, we've been here before and we know what to do. One of those cues, for me, is something often referred to in sports psychology as diffused attention or the quiet eye. The idea is that instead of locking your eyes into a sharp tunnel vision stare, which can actually spike anxiety and narrow your field of awareness, you allow your gaze to soften. You pick a visual anchor point, but you don't stare it down. You let your eyes just relax. This approach helps regulate your nervous system. It sends a message to your brain that says we're safe. In fact, studies have shown that softening your visual focus, particularly in high-pressure situations, can increase heart rate variability, which is just a fancy way of saying your body becomes more adaptable and calm under stress. Personally, I use this before every throw. My anchor is usually the board number beside me, not the board I'm playing on, but the one next to it to the top right. I soften my focus on that number and let my peripheral vision open up. If I'm really dialed in, I hold that neutral focus all the way until my opponent retrieves their darts. That's my reset between shots. This is more than relaxation. It's direction. The quiet eye, that soft gaze, sends a signal to the nervous system that says we're not under attack. After my visual reset, I have two specific ready positions. In the first, I stand up straight and confidently, and I look directly at the triple 20 or whatever my target is. Then I approach the board, saying my trigger words in my head. We'll save those for another episode on trigger words and self-talk. My second ready stance occurs when I plant my foot at the oki. I know that I throw my best if I plant my front foot firmly and distribute the weight on it evenly, not leaning or rolling onto the outside of my foot. If I get this step right, I'm far more likely to have a great shot. So let me run through that one more time, more simply. 1. I stare at a neutral spot, usually a board number, and soften my gaze. 2. When my opponent retrieves their darts, I stand up straight and address the board. Ready state 1. 3. I approach the board. And 4. I plant my throwing foot and distribute my weight evenly. That's ready state 2. My ready states have changed with time, but this is what I found. The more I manage what I'm looking at and my pre-throw routine, the more I'm in control of what I'm thinking about. When you give your eyes a place to rest, you give your brain a place to settle. When you follow a pre-shot routine, you tell your body and mind you're ready to go on the attack. It might sound overly mechanical, but as you practice these things, they'll become second nature. And I can tell you this, when I don't follow that sequence, I'm more likely to rush, to doubt, to feed my chimp. When I do follow it, the chimp settles. The professor steps up, and my first dart isn't a question mark, it's a statement. You can do the same. Your routine might look different. Maybe you flick the flight on your dart. Maybe you bounce on your heels. Maybe you exhale slowly and settle into your stance. Whatever it is, make it consistent and practice it. This isn't superstition, it's patterning. You're teaching your brain that this sequence of physical actions equals readiness, that this is how we start, that this is what performance feels like. And over time, your chimp won't need convincing. It will just listen. So before the first dart, before the pressure, before the muscle memory takes over, build your pre-dart posture. Your first move, your neutral gaze, your physical affirmation that this match starts with you. Because the moment before your first dart is where everything begins. Now, do I get this right every shot? Not a chance. Every match? Not even. That makes me think of an important message about your DartBrain and all the strategies, techniques, and magical potions we'll discuss on DartBrain. You have to invest in it. Just listening to the DartBrain podcast may give you ideas that will work for you, but it all takes practice. You need to practice your ready position at home. You need to use it on league night. You need to use it in tournaments. You need to use it when you're playing well. And you need to use it when you're struggling, especially when you're struggling. There are no shortcuts in darts, and there are no magic pills. This stuff takes work. Okay, so what does this all tell us? Firstly, it tells us that the body can simulate and therefore influence the mental state required for elite performance. And when you combine posture with intentional breathing, you're giving your mind two signals. We're not panicking, we're ready. Posture doesn't just support your body, it protects your focus. And in darts, indeed in all high-performance pursuits, focus is the whole game. That's why it's the center of the DartBrain model, which we'll discuss in the next episode. But here's the real secret. You're not just calming your nerves. You're Jedi mind-tricking your chimp into thinking this pub is a Zen temple. You're creating a loop, a physical-to-mental feedback loop that reinforces performance readiness. This is where the magic of embodied cognition comes into play. The idea that your body doesn't just respond to thoughts, it helps generate them. If your body says you're safe and capable, your brain begins to believe it. And when your brain believes it, you perform like it. This is what's happening when a player walks up to the board like they own it. It's not cockiness, it's calibration. They're using their body to tell their brain what to feel. They're using posture as performance prep. This isn't theoretical. There are decades of sports psychology research behind it. Studies have shown that athletes who adopt strong, grounded postures before competition feel more confident, perform with more precision, and recover more quickly from mistakes. Let's sum this up with a little more muscle. It performs. Let's keep this going. Concept of the chimp brain and the professor brain seemed to resonate in the last episode. So let's build on it here, since what we've discussed so far about body language is in part about ensuring you keep your professor in control of the bus. But let's face it, there's a battle going on for your attention, and you need a way to calm that jittery, banana-hurling chimp before he lights the curtains on fire. Let's set the scene. You're standing at the hockey. Your opponent just banged in a 180. You're holding 3 darts that feel like unfamiliar garden tools. Your palms are sweating. Your heart's racing. Your darts feel like IKEA tools, vaguely familiar but completely unhelpful. And somewhere in your head, the chimp is screaming, "Oh no, everyone's watching. What if you miss?" This is not a great mindset for nailing a double. But here's the beautiful paradox. You can't calm the chimp by shouting at it. That's like yelling "relax" to someone having a panic attack. The key isn't force, it's redirection. You can't beat the chimp with brute force, but you can outsmart it. Enter the professor, stage left. Your professor brain, your rational thinking planning self, is your greatest asset when things get chaotic. And here's the trick. Activating your professor brain actually shuts down the chimp. Not literally, like pulling a plug, more like changing the Spotify playlist from chimp freakout mix to lo-fi dart beats. Research from UCLA showed that labeling your emotions, a task that requires rational engagement, literally reduced brain activity in the amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for emotional reactivity, aka chimp headquarters. This is called affect labeling, and it's one of the sneakiest, simplest ways to shift control upstairs to your professor. So if you're on stage and feeling jittery, instead of trying to suppress the nerves, try this. Okay, I'm feeling anxious. My heart's pounding. My hands are tight. Let's focus on my routine. Just naming it engages your rational mind and starts to calm the chaos. It's like handing the professor the remote control, and he immediately switches from a Monkey Mayhem BBC documentary to a calming episode of How It's Made about dartboards. Another way to switch off the monkey mind? Attentional control. Think of your attention like a flashlight in a dark room. Wherever you shine it, that's what becomes vivid, detailed, and emotionally charged. The chimp wants to shine it on the worst case scenario: missing, choking, being judged, a pigeon flying in front of the dartboard mid-throw. Don't laugh, it happened at the Dutch Open once. But your professor can grab that flashlight and point it somewhere else, somewhere useful. There are 2 types of attention to master in darts: external focus, the board, the target, the feel of your setup, and internal focus, how your body feels, your thoughts, your breathing. Both can be helpful depending on what you need, but the key is that you choose intentionally. Don't let the chimp grab the spotlight and aim it straight at your fears like a terrified Girl Scout on our first camping trip. Research shows that athletes who use external focus, like aiming at a specific part of the target, perform better than those who use internal focus, like trying to control their elbow angle or release timing. The external focus seems to allow more fluid, automatic execution, which keeps the chimp sleepy and the professor cruising. Meanwhile, researchers who studied choking under pressure found that overthinking mechanics called explicit monitoring can actually disrupt automatic skills. In short, if the chimp freaks out and the professor starts micromanaging your throwing arm, disaster. So what is the ideal zone? It's a calm professor brain directing attention to external cues while the body does what it's trained to do. Steve Peters describes the professor as slower, more methodical, and more mature than the chimp. It needs space and conditions to operate. Every time you resist the urge to huff or shake your head after a bad turn, you're creating space. Space for clarity, space for the professor. And here's where it gets even more strategic. Your brain can only intentionally focus on one thing at a time. It's not built for multitasking and high-pressure moments. So when you give your brain something to focus on, a breath, a posture, a cue word, you're taking away its ability to spiral into worry, doubt, or frustration. That's why pre-shot routines are so powerful. They give your professor something to do, a job. And when your professor has a job, the chimp has less room to panic. Directing your focus becomes a form of psychological self-defense. It's not distraction, it's direction. In darts, where the margin for error is millimeters and milliseconds, your focus is your most valuable asset. So protect it like it's your last pint and you're sitting at a table with Shane. Guard it, point it, command it, because where your attention goes, your dart brain follows. All right, let's get practical. Here are some techniques to engage the professor, direct your attention, and send the chimp back to his tree. Technique 1. Self-talk like a nerdy coach. Replace, "oh God, what if I miss?" with breathe, steady stance, eyes on the target. You're literally giving your professor a voice and shutting the chimp up like he just got told to take a timeout. Studies on instructional self-talk show that cue words like smooth or follow through can enhance performance under pressure. So keep it brief, keep it technical, and speak to yourself like you're coaching a robot with stage fright. Technique 2. Use a routine, the ritual of rationality. Have a consistent setup routine that gives your professor something to do. You might step up to the Aki, take a breath, lock eyes with the triple 20, and say to yourself, smooth, smooth, smooth. Routine focuses the flashlight. It turns chaos into choreography. It says, don't worry, chimp, we've done this before. Here, have a banana. Think of your routine as a mental bouncer at the club door, keeping the chimp out unless he's wearing shoes and a collared shirt. Technique 3. Ask a question only a professor could love. If you feel nerves rising, ask yourself something so rational the chimp gets bored. What's my first cue in my throw sequence? Where is my attention right now? Am I breathing evenly and steadily? These aren't emotional questions, they're nerdy. And nerdy is safe. Nerdy doesn't panic. Nerdy wears glasses and makes spreadsheets. Nerdy throws good darts and wins lags. Technique 4. Focus on a task, not an outcome. The chimp loves results. Win the leg, win the match, avoid failure. The professor loves process. Hit your marker, follow through, focus on rhythm. That shift from outcome to task is critical. Research on performance routines emphasizes that successful athletes focus on controllables, not outcomes. You can't control what your opponent throws. You can control your breath, your stance, your rhythm. That's your professor's domain. And here's a critical insight. Trying to take back control from a chimp once it's already in full meltdown mode is like trying to reason with a raccoon that's just found half a quarter pounder in the trash. You're not going to win that battle. At best, you're negotiating with a screeching, adrenaline-fueled lunatic holding a banana and your dignity. So the best defense? Don't let the chimp take the wheel in the first place. All of these strategies, breath, routine, attention, cue words, they aren't just for damage control after panic darts. They're preventative tools. You're putting locks on the doors to your mechanical room so the chimp never gets access to the electrical panel. This is why you train routines. This is why you rehearse your focus under low pressure, so when things heat up, your professor is already in profession, clipboard ready, calmly whispering, target, follow through, exhale. When the professor is running the show from the start, the chimp doesn't get a chance to stage a coup. Finally, when you catch your inner monkey swinging from emotional branches, you don't have to fight with him. Just notice him. There you are again, you overcaffeinated gremlin. Thanks for the warning, but I'm going to aim at the triple now. Humor disarms anxiety. It gives the professor just enough distance to make wise choices instead of primal ones. Plus, your chimp hates being laughed at. He'll retreat, grumbling, and leave you to throw in peace. So the next time you feel yourself spinning, whether you're at your local league night or facing down a camera on stage, remember that attention is power. Where you point it matters. And by intentionally engaging your professor brain, you aren't just thinking clearly, you're calming your entire system. You're not fighting the chimp. You're making the professor too interesting to ignore. It's like inviting Sherlock Holmes to the party. The monkey might show up with fireworks and tequila, but once Sherlock starts solving mysteries, he's got everyone's attention. Let your professor lead. He's not flashy. He probably wears socks and sandals, but he's got your back when the pressure's on. Your chimp brain is emotional, reactive, and easily overwhelmed under pressure. It panics, it catastrophizes, it shouts, "We're all gonna miss!" Your professor brain is rational, calm, and thrives on structure, attention, and control. It's not flashy, but it's your best shot at consistency. Attentional direction is the key. What you focus on expands. So shine your spotlight on what helps you, not what haunts you. All right, let's hit the recap bullseye. This episode started with a simple idea. The brain doesn't work alone. It takes cues. And the body, it's sending those cues all the time through posture, breath, gaze, rhythm, and ritual. We learned that posture isn't just presentation, it's programming. Stand tall and your brain gets the message. We're in control. Slouch and the chimp grabs the wheel. Breathing isn't just about oxygen, it's about override. Deep, calm breaths lower cortisol and unlock fine motor control. Routines aren't superstition. They're signal systems. Repeating the same physical actions before each throw tells your professor brain it's time to focus. Your gaze directs your nervous system. Soft eyes and neutral focus help regulate your emotions and sharpen your throw. Your body language is your first dart, and that dart sets the tone for all the others. You're not just managing your throw, you're managing a system, your DartBrain. And this system, it responds best when you take a body-first approach. From Soviet-ready positions to mirror neurons, from power poses to soft focus, you've now got a toolkit of physical cues to help guide your psychology. You've learned how to stand like you belong, walk like you're ready, and throw like the moment is yours. But let's be real, this stuff takes practice. There's no shortcut to confidence. You can't outthink a bad routine. You can't outmuscle the chimp. What you can do is build habits, build rituals, build intention. Because the next time the lights get bright, the crowd gets loud, and your opponent goes full Gerwin Price, you'll already have a game plan, a posture, a breath, a focus. The magic isn't the mechanics, it's the message you're sending to your brain. And that message starts with how you move, how you breathe, and how you carry yourself between every single dart. So when you step to the Aki the next time, don't just show up, arrive. Arrive with your shoulders back and your mind quiet. Arrive with the professor in the driver's seat and the chimp buckled up in the back. Arrive like a player who's not just hoping to play well, but ready to. Because when your body leads with purpose, your brain follows with performance. Now get out there and throw like someone who's done their homework. In the next episode, really this time, we're going to dive deep into the DartBrain itself, the control room where your mental game lives. We'll explore the two forces battling for control of it, mischievous gremlins that mess with your focus and the powerful guardians that protect it. You'll learn how to recognize when gremlins are hijacking your throw, how to strengthen your inner guardians, and how to build a DartBrain that stays cool, confident, and consistent, even in the highest pressure moments. So until then, take a breath, trust your throw, and for the love of tungsten, don't let the monkey drive the bus. This has been DartBrain. I'm Clint Clarkson. Until next time, stay focused, throw with purpose, and train your DartBrain.